I'm going to start by saying I am honored and thrilled to be on the ticket with these three guys, but everybody else that was here too. Joe, it's great to be on the ticket with you and Deborah and Beth and Kay and Chuck and Deanna. We're honored to be on the ticket with everybody that is on this ticket. Why? Because we are right on the issues, okay? It is. Let me tell you why the Attorney General's position matters, all right? Couple of different reasons. Number one, in addition to being the lawyers for Lynn Riley and for the Secretary of State, and we want to make sure that it's excellence in everything we do from the time we answer the phone until we go to the U.S. Supreme Court. But there's a couple of other issues or a couple of other ways that the AGs are now getting involved in issues. One is you are seeing more and more state AGs getting involved in federal issues, okay? We've gotten involved in issues like the waters of the U.S. and the Clean Power Plan rule. Now, that's not because – let's everybody in this room agree. We are all for clean air and clean water. We all share the same air. We drink the same water. We believe, however, in the principles of federalism, that the federal government's got its role, state government has its role, local government has its role, and we need to stay in our own lane, right? So we filed suit to make sure that the state of Georgia has a role in each of those areas. Why? Because I have confidence in Georgians to take care of clean air and clean water and health care. And we were talking about that as well. But let me also tell you why this is important. And Brian talked about it. And let me say, at Economic Development, working with Brian Kemp, every time we asked Brian to do something, he was there. Every time we worked with the legislature to solve a problem, they were there, and it was because of good, solid, conservative Republican leadership. And I know Jeff's going to do the same thing, and we're going to work with Brad as well. But I believe in the power of the free enterprise system. I have seen the transformative nature all over this state. Families are transformed, communities are transformed because we solve problems. That is not the case with all AGs. And my friends on the other side of the aisle, and Brian talked about the money that's coming in from California and New York, that is not the same philosophy that they have. In fact, I was at a meeting with the general counsel for a company who said they recently met with one of my colleagues from the other side. Talking about an issue, 30 seconds in, the Attorney General held up his hand and said, let me just tell you where I'm coming from. I believe that all companies are created evil. Let me be clear, that is not my position, okay? Now, it's our job to uphold the rule of law. It's our job, it's my job as AG to defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and the interests of the people of Georgia. If the law needs to be changed, there are great legislators that can do that. If federal law needs to be changed, you go to Congress. Unfortunately, folks on the other side of the aisle, they're filing suit against the president, not because they think it's unconstitutional or illegal, it's because they don't like it. That is not the role of the Attorney General, number one. Number two, we are working very, very closely with Brian, and I know we're going to work with Jeff and members of the legislature on 5 different areas. Human trafficking, and Deborah and I worked on a bill that now in the state of Georgia, it's not only illegal to solicit for the purposes of human trafficking, it's also patronizing, which somebody could put up basically on a website and you accept. That's now a crime in the state of Georgia, and Deborah, thank you so much for being a partner in that. Why does this issue matter? Because it's adults purchasing children for sex, and that is wrong, and we're going to root it out wherever it is, number one. Number two, we have an opioid crisis in this state. We are addressing it through a number of different ways. We have an investigation into the manufacturing, and Sam Owens is here. He started this when he was at, and Sam, get a round of applause for the job that he did. I can't thank him enough for the support he's given us, because we're looking at the manufacturing practices and distributors as well, looking at some of the marketing techniques and practices that companies have done. Again, my first instinct is not to sue companies, but when you see what's going on in this particular case, this is something we have to look at. We're looking at whether the state of Georgia should also file its own lawsuit. Cities and counties have done it as well. But one of the things that we have found is we've got a lot of passion in the state. We've got a lot of folks that are interested in this issue. Unfortunately, it impacts far too many communities and families, and what I saw was we weren't communicating. So we created a statewide task force so that we could bring everybody together, all the experts, the doctors, the pharmacies, K-12, law enforcement, and say, what are we doing to address the crisis? Number two, how do we leverage the assets and the resources that we have to address the crisis? And three, if there are gaps, how do we fill those gaps? Also, we're addressing elder abuse. It is a good thing that we are an aging population, but it also provides criminals an opportunity to steal life savings, to steal benefits, and in the most horrific circumstances, go out and recruit. Say, you can live in my house, you can live in our apartment, give me $200 or $300, but give me your veterans benefit, your EBT card, your Social Security benefits. And oftentimes, folks like that have mental illness and physical ailments. And you know what? Whether it is human trafficking, whether it is children, or whether it's adults, we have a legal obligation to defend them, but we also have a moral one. And that's what we're going to continue to do as long as I'm Attorney General. Also, cyber crimes, more stuff going on. As Brian talked about going to Silicon Valley, we are in an incredible position in the state of Georgia, whether it's Atlanta or Columbus or Augusta or Alpharetta or Johns Creek. We've got an opportunity to be on the forefront of national security, law enforcement, and from a private sector perspective. When you've got the fintech industry in this state, where 70% of all transactions are touching a Georgia company, where a quarter of all global revenue is now touching a Georgia cybersecurity company, we've got a great opportunity, and we need to continue to grow that. And finally, we're going to address the gang crisis. It is unfortunate, but we have one in this state. According to the Georgia gang investigators, they just did a survey. There are 71,000 identifiable gang members in 1,500 different gangs in our state. Now, we're going to address that crisis. This isn't a Georgia issue. This is a national issue. But you know what? We're going to do something in the state of Georgia. We just called a first-of-its-kind meeting with the 3 U.S. attorneys, corrections, juvenile justice, community supervision, the police chiefs, the sheriffs, and the prosecuting attorneys to say, what do we need to do to address the crisis? Because why? It's all about guns and drugs and human beings and benefits and cybercrime. It's all about making money, and we got to stop it. Now, as Chuck mentioned, I had the chance to work for Senator Johnny Isakson as his chief of staff. I've been able to work for 2 individuals who I think are the most successful politicians that hate the politics of politics because they love policy, and they've been absolutely fantastic. I got a chance to go to Israel with Johnny and AIPAC. I got to go with Marty and Judy Kogan and with the Wertheims, and we had a great trip there, but we also got to take Governor Deal on a trade mission. And we got a chance to talk about cybersecurity and talk about trade. And one of the most interesting moments, and went with Sally as well, but one of the most interesting moments, we're in a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Governor Deal is introducing all of us, and I'm sitting next to Hank Huckabee, who's the chancellor of the university system. And Governor goes down the row, he gets to me, and he goes to Hank, and Prime Minister Netanyahu looks at him and goes, a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that. It was one of the coolest moments. But we are the #1 state in the nation to do business because we believe we are problem solvers, and we're going to continue to do it. For 16 years, we have had unprecedented growth. We have, and our friend from the Japanese media is here, Georgia's first office overseas was in Japan. We're successful because we are an international city and an international state, and we know how to be successful at business. And you know what? 16 years of success, starting with Governor Sonny Perdue, through Governor Nathan Deal, and next is going to be Governor Brian Kemp. All of us believe in this state. There is a lot of good stuff that's going on. Jeff Duncan, Brad Raffensperger, me, everybody we've just talked about. Don't forget, vote the ballot, vote the ticket, and let's continue to have good, solid, conservative Republican leadership. Thanks again.